The cargo hauler Liberty Bell drifted through the endless black of space with only one person aboard. Captain Zara Thompson had been alone for 40 days now, making her regular supply run to the outer colonies. Most humans would have gone crazy from the isolation, but Zara enjoyed the quiet. She had her music, her books, and the stars for company. She was eating a protein bar and watching the sensors when something unusual appeared on her screen. It was a distress signal coming from deep in the dead zone. Nobody went to the dead zone. There was nothing there but empty space and old battlefield debris from wars fought centuries ago. Zara turned up the volume on the communication system. The message was broken and full of static, but she could make out a few words in Universal Standard: help us, engine failure, life support failing. Please anyone. She checked her navigation charts. The signal was coming from 60 light minutes away. That was far off her planned route. Going there would use extra fuel she needed for her delivery. But the desperation in that voice made her pause. Zara pulled up her fuel calculations. She had enough to make the detour and still reach the colonies. But it would be close. There would be no margin for error. She looked at the distress signal again. It had been repeating for at least 3 cycles. That meant whoever was sending it had been waiting for help for 3 standard days. Most cargo haulers would have ignored it. The dead zone was dangerous, and helping strangers in space often led to trouble. But Zara was not most cargo haulers. She had grown up on Mars colony, where her parents taught her that humans survived by helping each other. When the colony lost power during the Great Storm, it was neighbors helping neighbors that kept everyone alive. She made her decision and changed course. The Liberty Bell was not a fast ship, but she pushed the engines as hard as she dared. The distress signal grew stronger as she approached. She sent a response message. This is Captain Thompson of the human vessel Liberty Bell. I am coming to help. Hold on. Meanwhile, on the disabled Korthani science vessel, Seeker of Stars, Commander Velix stared at the communication panel in disbelief. Someone had answered. For 3 days they had been sending their distress call, and every ship that came within range had continued on without responding. But now someone was coming. Velix turned to her crew. 8 Korthani scientists and explorers, all looking weak from rationing their remaining supplies. The Korthani were a proud species standing 7 feet tall with blue-scaled skin and 4 arms. They were known across the galaxy as warriors, but this crew was different. They were researchers searching for new knowledge. Lieutenant Krex was the first to speak. Commander, are you certain we can trust this human? We know nothing about them. What if this is a trap? Velix understood the concern. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago, while the Korthani had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Nobody really knew what humans were capable of, but we have no choice. Velix said, our life support will fail in 10 hours. If this human means us harm, we die. If we do not accept their help, we die anyway. At least this way we have a chance. The crew nodded reluctantly. They all knew the math. Their ship had hit an uncharted debris field that tore through their engine core. They had enough power to keep life support running, but not enough to move or send a strong distress signal. They were dead in space. Zara pushed the Liberty Bell harder than she should have. The old ship protested with creaks and groans, but held together. She had bought it used 5 years ago with every credit she had saved. It was not pretty, but it was reliable. Like everything humans built, it was designed to keep working, even when it should not. As she got closer, she could see the alien ship on her visual sensors. It was beautiful in the way all Korthani ships were, with smooth curves and elegant lines. But she could also see the damage. A huge gash ran along the side where debris had torn through the hull. She opened a communication channel. This is Captain Thompson. I can see your ship now. How many crew members do you have? What atmosphere do you breathe? Commander Velix responded quickly. 8 crew members. We breathe a nitrogen-oxygen mix similar to your Earth standard, but, Captain, our ship is twice the size of yours. How can you help us? Zara was already running calculations in her head. 8. Korthani would put a strain on her life support systems, but she could make it work. She would have to. She grabbed her emergency supplies and started preparing. "I have a docking tube that should connect to your airlock," she said. "My ship can support all of you, but we need to move fast." "How much time do you have?" "Less than 10 hours. Velix said. She could not believe this small, human ship was going to attempt a rescue. The Liberty Bell looked like it was held together with welding patches and hope. But it was here, and that was more than any other ship had offered. Zara moved through her preparations with practiced efficiency. She had never rescued aliens before, but the principles were the same as any emergency in space. Move fast, stay calm, and never give up. Her father had been a rescue worker on Mars, and he always said that panic killed more people than any disaster. She checked her equipment one more time, then moved to the airlock. She was about to save 8 alien lives with nothing but an old cargo ship and human stubbornness. The second day aboard the Liberty Bell started with an alarm that made everyone jump. Zara was out of her bunk and running to the cockpit before she was fully awake. The Korthani crew watched her sprint past them, her small form moving with surprising speed. The coolant system was failing. A pipe had cracked under the strain of supporting so many life forms, and green fluid was spraying across the engine room. Without coolant, the engines would overheat and they would be dead in space, just like the Korthani ship had been. Velix and Krex followed Zara to the engine room expecting to see panic. Instead, they found her laughing. She was actually laughing as coolant sprayed everywhere. "Of course this would happen," she said, grabbing her tools. "This ship never makes anything easy." She turned to the Korthani can. "Two of you hold this pipe steady while I patch it. Your forearms would really help right now." The aliens looked at each other in confusion, then moved to help. They held the pipe while Zara worked. Her hands moved fast, applying sealant and wrapping the crack with what looked like metallic tape. She worked around their arms, never stopping talking the whole time. "This is actually the 3rd time this pipe has cracked," she said. "I should probably replace the whole system, but that costs credits I do not have. So we make do with patches and prayers. Standard human engineering." Really, Krex could not understand this attitude. "How can you laugh at such danger?" he asked. "If this fails, we all die." Zara looked up at him, grinning. "If I panic, does that fix the pipe faster?" "No. So I might as well laugh. Humans learned long ago that the universe is trying to kill us. We can either cry about it or laugh about it. Laughing is more fun." She finished the patch and stepped back. The leak had stopped. The pipe held. Zara patted it affectionately and said, "Good girl. Hold together for Mama." The Korthani were learning that humans had a strange relationship with their technology. They talked to their ships like they were alive. They fixed things with basic materials that should not work but somehow did. They treated every mechanical failure like a puzzle to solve, rather than a disaster. As they returned to the cargo bay, Velix asked Zara about Earth. She had never been to the human homeworld and was curious about what kind of planet produced people like this. Zara sat down with the aliens and started talking. "Earth is a death world," she said simply. "Everything there evolved to kill everything else. The weather tries to kill you. The animals try to kill you. Even some of the plants try to kill you." The Korthani listened in fascination as she described hurricanes that could destroy entire cities, earthquakes that reshaped landscapes and temperatures that ranged from freezing to boiling. She talked about predators that hunted humans for millions of years. "But here's the thing," Zara continued. "Humans did not survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by working together and by being too stubborn to die. When everything is trying to kill you, giving up is not an option." She told them about human history, about times when people survived impossible odds through cooperation and determination. She talked about explorers who crossed frozen wastelands, astronauts who fixed their ships with duct tape and plastic bags, and ordinary people who did extraordinary things when needed. The Korthani began to understand humans were not powerful because of their technology or their bodies. They were powerful because they refused to accept defeat. They saw every problem as something to be solved, every disaster as something to survive. On the 3rd day, they encountered another problem. The navigation computer started glitching. showing their position as 3 different locations at once. Without accurate navigation, they could not reach the station. Velix expected Zara to call for help or turn back. Instead, she pulled out actual paper, and started doing calculations by hand. My grandmother taught me this, she said. Marking numbers on the page before computers, humans navigated by stars and math. If the computer fails, we go old school. She taught the Korthani how to take star readings and calculate position manually. It was slow and tedious, but it worked. They spent hours working together, checking each calculation. The Korthani scientists were impressed by the elegance of the human math as they worked. Krex asked about human families. He had noticed Zara mentioned her relatives often. The Korthani had families too, but they did not seem as central to their identity. Family is everything to humans, Zara explained. We are born helpless and stay that way for years. We need others to survive from day one. That creates bonds that last forever. Even when we go to space, we carry our families with us in our memories and lessons. She showed them pictures on her datapad. Her parents on Mars, her grandmother on Earth, her younger brother, who was studying to be an engineer. They looked so small and fragile compared to the Korthani, but their eyes held the same determination Zara had. The Korthani shared their own stories. They talked about their research, their quest to find new forms of life in unexplored space. They had been mocked by other Korthani for choosing science over warfare, but they believed knowledge was its own form of strength. We are similar. Felix realized both our crews chose exploration over safety, chose questions over answers. Perhaps that is why you answered our call. You recognized kindred spirits. Zara smiled at that. Maybe, she said. Or maybe I just could not stand the thought of anyone dying alone in the dark. Space is scary enough when you have people with you. Being alone out here would break anyone. As the Liberty Bell continued its limping journey toward safety, the 2 species continued to learn from each other. The Korthani taught Zara their language and showed her star charts of regions no human had seen. Zara taught them human songs and card games and the ancient art of making coffee with a broken machine. They were no longer rescuer and rescued. They were a crew united by necessity and growing friendship. The universe had brought them together in the most unlikely way, and they were determined to survive it together. The station was still a day away, but nobody was counting anymore. They had food, water, air, and each other in space. That was everything. The docking tube extended from the Liberty Bell like a metal snake reaching across the void. Zara watched the connection process from her cockpit, making small adjustments to keep the ships aligned. The Korthani vessel was much larger than hers, and even disabled it looked impressive next to her patched-up cargo hauler. When the tube locked in place with a satisfying clunk, Zara grabbed her emergency kit and headed to the airlock. She had never met a Korthani in person before. She knew they were tall and strong, but that was about it. First contact protocol suggested formal greetings and careful cultural exchange, but there was no time for that now. The airlock cycled open and Zara stepped into the tube. The artificial gravity flickered. As she crossed between ships, she could feel the Korthani ship dying around her. The lights were dim and the air felt stale. She moved faster. The inner airlock opened, and Zara got her first look at the Korthani crew. They were even taller than she, expected each one over 7 feet with shimmering blue scales and 4 muscular arms. They looked like warriors from old Earth stories, but their eyes showed only exhaustion and hope. Commander Velix stepped forward. Captain Thompson, thank you for answering our call. I am Commander Velix of the Seeker of Stars. We are in your debt. Zara waved away the formality. We can do introductions later. Right now, we need to get you all onto my ship. How many can walk on their own? 6 of the 8 could move, without help. The other 2 were weak from rationing their food and water. Zara helped support one while Velix and Krex helped the other. The size difference was almost comical, with Zara barely reaching the chest of the Korthani she was helping, but she managed. They moved through the docking tube in a careful line. Zara noticed the Korthani were looking at her with something like amazement. She did not understand why. She was just doing what needed to be done once aboard the Liberty Bell. The problems became clear. The Korthani had to duck to fit through the doorways, and the corridors were narrow for their bulk. But they made it work. Zara led them to the cargo bay, which was the only space large enough for all of them. "I know it is. Not comfortable," she said. "But it is the best I have. I will rig up some temporary quarters with cargo containers for privacy." Felix looked around the cargo bay. It was filled with medical supplies heading to the colonies. Boxes were stacked everywhere, leaving just enough room for the crew. This human was giving up her cargo space, her profit, to save them. "Captain Thompson." Felix began, but Zara was already moving. "Call me Zara," she said, pulling out emergency blankets and ration packs. "I need to adjust the life support for the extra bodies. Give me 20 minutes. She disappeared into the maintenance tunnel, leaving the Korthani crew standing in amazement. They had expected many things from their rescue, but not this. Not a single human working without rest to save strangers. Krek spoke quietly to Felix commander. "She is so small. How can humans survive in space? They have no natural armor, no redundant organs. They seem so fragile. Yet she is here." Felix replied, "And we are the ones who needed saving." Zara crawled through the maintenance tunnels, adjusting airflow and increasing oxygen production. The Liberty Bell was an old model designed to be repaired with basic tools. She thanked the ship designers for that as she rerouted power from non-essential systems. The ship could handle 11 people, but it would be tight. They would need to ration everything and pray nothing else broke. But they would make it. She refused to consider any other option. When she emerged from the tunnels, she was covered in grease and dust, but smiling. "It should hold," she announced. "The air might get a bit thin, but we will survive. Now let me look at your injured crew members." The two weakest Korthani were suffering from dehydration and malnutrition. Zara broke out, her medical supplies without hesitation, giving them water and nutrient injections. She had bought these supplies with her own credits, planning to sell them at a profit in the colonies. Now she used them without thinking of the cost over the next few hours. Zara worked to make the Korthani comfortable. She showed them how to use the human facilities, which were awkwardly small for them. She shared her food supplies and set up a rotation for sleeping. Felix watched this human work with growing respect. Zara never complained, never mentioned the cost or inconvenience. She just solved each problem as it came up. When the Korthani offered to help, she accepted gratefully, putting them to work, organizing supplies and checking systems. As the Liberty Bell began its journey to the nearest station, Krex asked Zara why she had answered their distress call when 12 other ships had ignored it. Zara was checking navigation charts and answered without looking up. "Because I could," she said simply. "Your signal reached me and I had the ability to help. Where I come from, that means you have the responsibility to help. But the risk," Krex pressed. "The dead zone is dangerous. You could have been attacked by pirates or suffered system failures yourself." Zara finally looked up at the large alien. "There is always risk," she said. "My grandfather used to say that the biggest risk is living a life where you never help anyone. That is not living at all, just existing." The Korthani crew exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected from humans. The galactic community saw humans as aggressive and chaotic new arrivals who fought among themselves. But this human was different. Or perhaps they had misunderstood humans entirely. As the first day of the Iki journey passed, Zara and the Korthani began to really talk. They shared stories of their homes, their dreams, their reasons for being in space. The barriers of species and culture began to fade, replaced by something simpler. They were all just travelers, in the dark trying to survive, and survival looked a lot more possible with a stubborn human refusing to give up on them. Station 7 appeared on the sensors like a promise of salvation. The massive structure spun slowly in space, its lights welcoming after days in the dark. Zara had never been so happy to see a refueling station, even if it was one of the rougher stops on the trade routes. "We made it," she announced to the cargo bay where the Korthani crew had gathered. They cheered in their own way, a harmonious sound that vibrated through the ship. But as they approached, Zara noticed something concerning. 3 Korthani military vessels were docked at the station. She looked at Felix, who had gone very still. "Those are Imperial Guard ships," Felix said quietly. They must have come when they heard about our distress. Signal cracks made a sound of disgust. They ignored us for days, and now they come when we are already saved. They will claim credit for our rescue and pretend they were searching for us all along. Zara felt anger rise in her chest. She had risked everything to save these people, and now their own government would swoop in and take credit. But then she saw the fear in the younger Korthani crew members' eyes and understood. There was more going on here. Velix explained reluctantly. We are not popular with the military. Our mission was seen as wasteful. We're supposed to be mapping new territory for military expansion. But we kept stopping to study phenomena that had no strategic value. They will not be happy. We survived. The Liberty Bell docked at the station with the usual clanks and hisses. Zara helped the Korthani prepare to disembark, but she could feel the tension. They had survived the void only to face their own people politics. As the airlock opened, a squad of Korthani soldiers stood waiting. Their armor was pristine, their weapons visible. They looked at the rescued crew with barely concealed contempt, then at Zara with confusion. You are the human who responded to the distress call, the lead soldier asked, his voice cold. I am Captain Zara Thompson of the Liberty Bell, she replied, standing, as tall as her 5'6" frame would allow. And these are my passengers whom I am delivering safely to this station. The soldier looked between Zara and the science crew. You expect us to believe that a single human in this primitive vessel rescued 8 Korthani? This must be some trick. Before Zara could respond, Velix stepped forward. Her voice carried authority, despite her weakened state. There is no trick. Captain Thompson risked her life and her ship to save us, when 12 other vessels, including 3 Korthani ships, ignored our calls. The soldiers sneered at Velix. Commander Velix, your unauthorized mission cost the Empire valuable resources. Your rescue will cost even more. You should have accepted your fate with honor. Zara had heard. Enough. She stepped between the soldier and Velix, which looked ridiculous given the size difference, but she did not care. Excuse me, she said, her voice sharp. These people are under my protection until they choose to leave my ship. You will speak to them with respect, or you will not speak to them at all. The soldier stared at her in amazement. This tiny human was challenging him. He could break her with one of his forearms, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. It was the same look Korthani warriors had before battle station security arrived, drawn by the commotion. The station chief, a tired-looking Altarian, waved everyone toward the administrative office. We will sort this out properly, he said. No fighting in my station. In the office, the story came out. The Korthani military confirmed they had received the distress signal but deemed the rescue too expensive and risky. The science crew was considered expendable. They had already been written off as casualties. Zara listened with growing disbelief. You were going to let them die because it was inconvenient to save them, she asked. The military representative, a higher-ranking officer who had arrived during the discussion, looked at her with cold eyes. That is not how we phrase it, but essentially, yes, resources must be allocated efficiently. Risking ships and crews for 8 scientists who ignored orders is not efficient. Then I guess humans and Korthani define efficiency differently. Zara said humans think saving lives is always efficient because you never know what those lives might accomplish. She turned to Velix and her crew. You do not have to go with them. You can stay on my ship. I am heading to the colonies, and they always need scientists. You would be welcome. There, the offer stunned everyone. The Korthani crew looked at each other, hope dawning in their eyes. The military officer started to object, but the station chief cut him off. The human is within her rights, he said. These Korthani were rescued in open space and brought here as passengers, not prisoners. They can choose their own path. Velix looked at her crew, then at Zara. Captain Thompson, you have already done so much. We cannot ask for more. You are not asking. Zara said, I am offering. There is a difference. The next hours were tense. The Korthani military tried various tactics to force the science crew to return. They threatened them with charges of desertion. They offered rewards. They even tried to pay Zara to withdraw her offer. But Zara stood firm, and one by one the science crew made their choice. 6 of the 8 decided to continue with Zara to the human colonies. Two chose to return home to family obligations as they prepared to depart. Felix pulled Zara aside. "Why are you doing this? You have already saved us. You owe us nothing more." Zara smiled. "On Earth we have a saying," she said, "in for a penny, in for a pound." It means if you commit to something, you see it through. Besides, I like you all. You are curious about the universe, just like humans are. That is rare and worth protecting. The military officer made one last attempt. "Captain Thompson, you are making enemies of the Korthani Empire. Is harboring these deserters worth that?" Zara looked him straight in the eye. "They are not deserters," she said. "They are explorers. And yes, they are worth it." As the Liberty Bell departed Station 7 with 6 Korthani crew members aboard, Zara felt something shift. The ship felt less empty. The cargo bay had become a proper living space. The cockpit had extra seats jerry-rigged from cargo containers. They were an odd crew, a single human and 6 aliens in a patched-up cargo ship. But they were heading toward the colonies with hope and purpose. The universe had just become a little smaller and a lot more interesting. The human colonies received them with curiosity rather than fear. Word had already spread through the communication networks about the human cargo pilot who had saved a Korthani science crew. When the Liberty Bell docked at New Haven Colony, the landing bay was full of people wanting to see the aliens who had chosen humanity over their own empire. Governor Lisa Martinez greeted them personally. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had led the colony for 10 years. "Welcome to New Haven," she said to Felix and her crew. "You are the first Korthani to visit our colony. We are honored." Felix bowed in the Korthani way, crossing all 4 arms. "Governor Martinez, we are grateful for your welcome. We come seeking a new beginning. Our own people have abandoned us, but Captain Thompson showed us that humans value life differently." Lisa smiled at Zara, who was standing quietly to the side. "That sounds like something a human would do," she said. "Come, let us show you around." The colony was not what the Korthani expected. Human colonies in the media were shown as rough military outposts. But New Haven was a thriving community with schools, gardens, and research facilities. Children ran through the streets playing and stopped to stare. At the tall blue aliens, the Korthani were given quarters in the research district where they could work with human scientists. The humans were eager to learn from them, and the Korthani were amazed by human creativity. They had expected primitive technology but found innovative solutions to problems the Korthani had never considered. Krex worked with the colony engineers, showing them Korthani power systems while learning about human improvisation techniques. He was fascinated by how humans could fix anything with basic tools and determination. Felix joined the colony astronomical survey team. Her knowledge of unexplored regions combined with human eagerness to explore opened new possibilities for discovery. They began planning joint expeditions to study cosmic phenomena. But it was the small things that really showed the difference between humans and other species. When one of the younger Korthani fell ill from an allergic reaction to local food, the human medical team worked around the clock to save him. They had never treated a Korthani before, but they refused to give up. Zara stayed in the colony for a month, helping the Korthani settle in. She taught them human customs and helped translate between them and the colonists. She was offered permanent positions by 3 different organizations, but turned them all down. "I am a cargo hauler," she said. "That is what I love doing, but now I know I can do more than just haul cargo." Before she left, Felix organized a ceremony. The 6 Korthani performed a traditional bonding ritual, making Zara an honorary member of their crew. In Korthani culture, this was the highest honor they could give. It meant she would always have a place among them. Zara was touched but also embarrassed by the attention. "You do not need to do this," she said. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Felix corrected. "You did what a human would do." And that made all the difference. As the Liberty Bell prepared to depart for another cargo run, word came through the communications network. The story of the rescue had spread throughout human and alien space. Other human ships were starting to answer distress calls that everyone else ignored. A human colony ship had rescued a damaged Altarian transport. Human mining vessel had towed a stranded Zalathi yacht to safety. A human military patrol had stopped to help a Vraxian merchant ship with engine problems. The pattern was noticed by other species. Humans would help anyone, anywhere, regardless of species or politics. They did not calculate profit or political advantage, they just helped. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss what they called the human problem. Several species complained that humans were disrupting the natural order by saving those who should be left to their fate. The human ambassador, a woman named Claire Washington, stood before the council. "You say we are disrupting the natural order," she said. "We say we are creating a better order, one where no one dies alone in the dark, one where distress calls are always answered. But this is not sustainable," the Vraxian delegate argued. "You cannot save everyone," Claire smiled. "Watch us," she said. The council did not know how to respond. Humans were still newcomers, barely understood by the older species, but their actions were forcing everyone to reconsider what civilization meant back at New Haven. Zara prepared for her next journey. The Liberty Bell had been repaired and upgraded with some Corthani improvements. Felix had insisted on installing a better life support system in case Zara needed to rescue anyone else. As Zara ran through her pre-flight checks, she received a message from Earth. It was from the human government officially recognizing her rescue and offering her a medal. She deleted it without reading the whole thing. She had not done it for recognition. But the next message made her stop. It was from a young human girl on Mars who had heard about the rescue. She wanted to be a rescue pilot, like Zara when she grew up. She asked for advice. Zara thought for a moment, then typed back, "Be brave, be kind, and always answer when someone calls for help. The universe is big and dark, but we make it brighter by helping each other." She sent the message, then fired up the Liberty Bell engines. The cargo hold was full of supplies for the outer colonies, but she had kept space open, just in case someone needed rescue. As the ship departed New Haven, Zara looked back at the planet where 6 Corthani were, building new lives alongside humans. They were proof that species did not matter when it came to survival and friendship. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known, that impossible was just another word for challenge, and humans never backed down from a challenge, especially when lives were on the line. Zara pointed the Liberty Bell toward the stars and smiled. She had cargo to deliver, but her communications array was tuned to all emergency frequencies. If someone out there needed help, she would answer, because that is what humans did. They answered the call when no one else would. And that simple act of kindness was changing the galaxy, one rescue at a time. The Liberty Bell disappeared into the dark between stars, its pilot ready for whatever came next. The universe was vast and dangerous, but it was a little less lonely knowing that somewhere out there, a human was listening for cries for help and would always answer.